Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Gooder. I'm welcoming you to yet another Cutter Degrassism retrospective. I've been doing these for the past few weeks. The first one was the kids at Degrassi Street, as I had never done a proper video on that topic, even though I've done tons of Degrassi stuff, especially with the Rick situation. Basically, talked about the episodes and what I remember from watching those ones when Degrassi had them every Friday for a while, like on YouTube, had them for a while, and the characters that transitioned from Kids at Degrassi to Degrassi Junior High, which of course was the next thing, talked about the 3 seasons of Degrassi Junior High, the episodes that went there, and all that, and how Caitlin became, seemingly a bitch, and then I just did the Degrassi High retrospective on New Year's Day, in which I talked about the episodes of the 2 seasons of Degrassi, especially the ones when Shane falls off the bridge, high on acid. And also, no, sorry, that was in junior high. What am I thinking? Oh, Degrassi High, Showtime, the Claude's story arc. So, anyway, it got me thinking, it's like maybe I should do more retrospectives and all that. I kind of did a series like 5+ years ago about every season, talked about the episodes, and then gave my MVPs and my most hated person thing, but I'm going to do it like talk about episodes. I'm going to try my best not to overanalyze as I'm prone to do. So I'm going to try to do 2 seasons in one video and try to make it 30 minutes. Oh, your pizza's free. I better not say that, but anyway, you get the idea. All right, so season 1 of Degrassi Next Gen started October 14th, 2001 in Canada and ended March 3rd, 2002. So of course, Canadian and American air dates were different. No, a serial teen drama TV series is introduced 7th and 8th grade children with challenges like online predators, body image, dysfunctional families, sex, puberty, rumors, peer pressure, stress, and drug use. CTV broadcast it Sundays at 7 o'clock, and it had a 1 hour kind of movie of the week, Mother and Child Reunion, which actually formed the first 2 episodes of season 1 and all of that. In the US, it was for the end and all that. Um, anyhow, usually, well, the reception was mixed. 365,000 people in Canada watched it each week, but the press reviews were not as complimentary. There were 600 auditioners and 11 children. So, anyway, this was a measure. There was mixed reviews and all that. So, anyway, here are the episodes. Um, Mother and Child Reunion started on October 14th, 2001, in which Spike's 12-year-old daughter Emma spends time communicating with Jordan over the internet and wants to meet him in person, even though her friends warn her about the dangers and all that. And there's a high school reunion in the subplot. That's these Degrassi High's people. Joey doesn't know if he wants to go because he lost his wife, Julia, and finds out that Caitlin's coming back with her fiance, Keith, for the event. There's several Degrassi High faces like the twins and Spike and Snake and all that, and Lucy, and even Raj makes an appearance because Raj is now the principal at Degrassi Community School. But anyway, Lucy is told by Raj to meet someone outside the reunion, and it ends up being Wheels or Neil Hope, as we should know him as. Wheels explains that he spent 9 years in prison thinking about what he did, and he feels terrible, and tells Lucy that, he's trying to make amends and all that. And Lucy admits that she feels sorry for him. So anyway, Emma bumps into Manny. They're best friends forever. And then JT and Toby pop in and all that. They know each other from summer camp, but they become part of Emma and Manny's friend group. And Toby tries to tell Emma that there's a danger about online predators. And Emma says she's known Jordan more than they have. Caitlin actually inadvertently gets Emma to go for the moment, even though that she doesn't know the whole story. Emma then goes to the hotel, but it's a middle-aged man who pretends to be a kid. This was catfishing before catfishing was in the popular lexicon about 7 years later. This was 2001, by the way. And the fact of the matter is that, he tries to go after Emma. And thankfully, though, Toby, JT, and Manny search for clues on the computer and find out where they are and get Spike and Snake to fix the problem. And fortunately, though, they save Emma. Emma admits her mistakes and all that. Spike tries to tell Emma that you can tell me anything. Well, I don't know. That's foreshadowing that something's wrong with Emma. But the fact is that, it was big and all that. Okay, the next episode was called Family Politics. It's when we find out about the blended families of Ashley and Toby. Because Ashley is Toby's stepsister, because Toby's dad married Ashley's mom and all that. We find out more about Ashley's dad in a sense, but we don't know much about Toby's mom a lot. But anyway, yeah. So basically, Ashley's a go-getter at the start, and then Toby's just this geeky person and all that. Toby is upset with her and gets JT to run against her, but JT runs kind of a joke campaign and all that. Spinner bullies Emma and Manny, but it is what it is. And this, I guess, this was the episode in which Paige says, "New year, new look, new page." I guess so. And then Eye of the Beholder was when Terry doesn't want to attend a nighttime dance because she thinks she's too fat. I know that, but Spinner likes her, and Spinner wants to make a play for Terry. But Paige doesn't like that and manages to get Terry drunk before her date with Spinner so that she can swoop Spinner in for herself. Emma actually meets Sean. This was the first appearance of Sean. And JT and Toby actually wanted to look at porn instead of the dance, all that. So yeah, this was Terry's massive thing about being insecure and all that. This wouldn't be the last time she would feel insecure and all that. But yeah, Paige being a dick about it and all that. Spinner actually wants Terry. And people are like, in the Degrassi Reddit, they're like, what would happen if Spinner would have been Terry? I think Spinner would have messed it up, the relationship with Terry. I think Terry still would have been prone to Rick and all that. Parents' Day happens, in which Toby does not want his divorced parents to come to the event because of how much they're fighting with each other. It would be a public spat between them. So he drafts some kind of letter saying that parent night is canceled, but they still come anyway, and they make a scene. Toby gets mad at them and all that. And then, of course, Snake's not too happy with Toby falsifying documents and wants him to write a paper about that. But he also tells Toby that he's proud of Toby for standing up to them. In the meantime, the subplot was when there was a morning announcements program called NAK, News About Kids. And Emma says it's so biased and all that. She's told by Radich to write an opinion piece in the next school paper. So she does. Unfortunately, though, Sean's brother Tracker is upset by Emma's results, saying you don't know both sides of the situation, and says that they do these morning announcements program and give funding to Degrassi so that there could be computers so that Sean can have an education. I mean, they both tried to argue their points, but did not work about it. However, Sean gives Emma credence. The mating game is this episode in which Jimmy and Ashley's 8-month anniversary comes up, but Ashley doesn't want Paige to be with Jimmy and all that. And Toby tries to get closer to Emma because he has a crush on her and all that. It's almost weird how every guy that falls for Emma is like wrecked in a sense. Toby being an emotional prick and all that, being a little bit, I don't know. I don't know how to describe him. Sean in season 6, he was not the same Sean as he was in season 4. Who else was a guy who was interested in Emma? Not too many. Oh, of course, Rick, of course, but that's a different story. Basketball Diaries, the 7th episode, was when Jimmy wants to make the basketball team, and his schoolwork suffers. So he's told he's got to get his grades up to be on the team. So he actually takes one of Spinner's Ritalin pills. The only time we actually hear about Spinner actually taking ADD medication. And so Jimmy becomes better and all that. Unfortunately, though, Spinner moons the audience during halftime, and Raj wants to know what's going on, saying that, you take this medication. Spinner could have easily told on Jimmy. And I think when they had one of the spats, I thought one of the spats later on in the seasons, Spinner told Jimmy, "Yeah, well, you took one of my medications, and I didn't rat on you to Radich." Anyway, Spinner is forced to take medication from Radich for everything, all that. So anyway, Jimmy, actually under the influence of the Ritalin, actually attacks Sean, who's on his own team, and makes the winning shot. Unfortunately, Coach Armstrong is not too happy and kicks Jimmy off the team. Secrets and Lies is when Ashley's dad comes back from Europe. Unfortunately, Ashley's dad had been hiding a secret. He's gay. And Ashley doesn't know what to do, so she cuts him out of her life until she realizes how stupid she was. And Liberty has a massive crush on JT. JT realizes that he wants to get out of this situation with Liberty by saying he's gay too. But everyone's like, yeah, right. Coming of age was when Jimmy actually spends all his time at Ashley's because his parents are working constantly, which makes her feel smothered. And this was the episode in which Emma learns her mood swings are not because of stress, but she's got her first period and all that. So she ends up having it, in a sense, before an English presentation with Miss Kwan. Manny helps her out and stuff and tries to cover Emma up. JT and Toby make fun of her, saying she wet herself, but then Emma basically decides to tell them about being period and menstruation and all that, and says that half the people have to go through it, right, Miss Kwan? That is absolutely right, Emma. And basically shuts the boys up. And that's when Sean kind of gets infatuated with her. And then rumors and reputations happens when Emma starts a hurtful rumor accidentally about Liberty with Mr. Armstrong when she's getting extra tutoring. Spinner's in trouble for putting bugs in school lunches and has to go to the school's cafeteria. But the rumor was accidental because Emma was confiding in Manny about the fact that Liberty was with Coach Armstrong and he had his arms around her, and Emma didn't know how to react. Manny tells her it's nothing, and then all of a sudden Terry hears this and then spreads the rumor, and basically Emma gets blamed for everything. Emma does admit her own faults to Radich on her own accord after hearing everything, and Liberty blasts her, saying that go back to saving the rainforest because making friends, you can't do that. Now, I wonder if Emma should have just said to Liberty, I was worried about you because it brought back the whole catfishing thing. Maybe in Emma's mind, it was the uncomfortable position of being, catfish and all that, and she was trying to look out for Liberty. Even if Liberty basically blows her off, I think Emma did the right thing, but she didn't. Next episode is Friday night, is when Sean asks Emma on a date, but the night's a disaster. Jimmy and Spinner are basically pushed by Miss Kwan. Well, they think Miss Kwan's punching them over nothing, but they give them a Friday night detention because she does the English classes for people, ESL, English as a second language. So anyway, they force Miss Kwan to take an order of chicken wings from Pizza Pizza, and the one guy was hilarious saying, "I buy the chicken," and all that, and all that. Unfortunately, though, the pranks are, well, that's fine, but Jimmy and Spinner actually go too far and egg Miss Kwan's car, and that is disastrous. Miss Kwan has to take a leave of absence, and Radich has to take over the grade 8 English class and all that, and Spinner's upset. Wannabe was the 12th episode in which Paige starts Spirit Squad and says that despite what people think about cheerleaders, it's not sexist. We're going to have boys on the team. Well, kind of, they're right, but sexism and gender is not the same. And Emma wants to point that out. Manny hangs out with the it crowd and it questions her friendship with Emma, who's not really supportive. And I feel that Emma was being kind of jealous and all that. You so jealous. Well, yeah, I say so. So Emma being unsupportive, yeah. And then she writes an op-ed about the Spirit Squad, and Paige wants Manny to destroy it because it'll ruin Spirit Squad. But fortunately, Spirit Squad continues. Emma and Manny make up in a sense. When Emma did that whole outfit with the turtleneck and all that, I thought that was just to protest Manny stuff. Cabaret is which Ashley writes a song she plans to perform with Terry at the lunchtime cabaret. But Paige, but when Paige is added into the mix, Paige takes control. Anyway, Emma wants to do an interpretive dance to advocate anti-poaching, and Toby steps up because of his attraction towards Emma. Under Pressure is the next episode. Is when 14 episode 14 when Sean does not want to repeat grade 7 for a second time. He, he's convinced he failed after for not finishing his media immersions exam one time. He's stressed, and then he gets mad when Jimmy basically gets under his skin. Yeah, Jimmy gets under his skin, and Sean and Jimmy decide to fight. Emma's not too happy with it and tries to pull Sean and Jimmy apart, but Sean inadvertently shoves Emma and breaks off the relationship. And Ashley wants to and Jagged Little Pill. That's what's the season finale, which she wants to have fun and tired of people calling her perfectionist. Is it in your slumber party, but it's in a rager. JT actually manages to get an ecstasy pill and wants to share it with Toby and Sean. But Ashley consumes it. Things go from bad to worse. She makes herself look terrible and all that. JT tries to find another ecstasy pill, but Sean swipes it for vitamins. So that worked out. So that was season 1 in a nutshell. So what's my time? Okay, I gotta go quicker. Season 2 is the episode that's series started September 29th, 2002 in Canada and ended February 23rd, 2003. 22 episodes. Oh boy, this will be harsh. Because this deals with child abuse, hormones, rape, body image, hate crime, sexual identity, alcoholism, and protests. And all that. So yeah, it started with the episode When Doves Cry. This was the two-parter that saw Craig be introduced to Degrassi. Craig is this guy who likes to do photography. Hopefully, I said it right. I have troubles with that word for some odd reason. But anyway, yeah, Craig's introduced in When Doves Cry, but he has an abusive father who basically gets mad at Craig for almost no good reason. Basically, it's just like any reason to get mad at Craig, he does. And Craig gets finally beaten up. His camera gets broken by Albert, and Albert gives him $3,000 for a new one, but Craig wants to take the money and take Angie, Joey's daughter, to BC. And Joey's concerned, why would Craig want to be with Angie and all that? It just doesn't make sense. However, the pieces come together when um, Craig tries to play chicken with a train and Sean stops him from that. And then Sean and Emma go to Joey with the information about Craig and says that Craig's problems are his father. And Angie pipes up. So basically, Joey doesn't understand things. Emma finds clues and thinks Craig's at his mother's grave, which he was. And then we find out his mother is Julia Manning. And it's like, is that the same Julia who was Joey's wife who he talked about in the first episode of season 1? It was. The pieces fell together. Craig wanted to be with Angie because, they were step siblings. Craig's mom left Albert, as in Craig's dad, and Craig to be with Joey, married Joey, had Angie, and then she died of a disease. And that's probably why Albert feels the need to beat up Craig because of his frustrations that Julia left him. So anyway, so Craig goes to live with Joey until Albert gets help. Girls just want to have fun is when Emma finds out about Spike and Snake dating and is not too happy with it. Mostly, I feel like, she's like, my mom's dating my teacher, and most kids don't want their parents dating their teacher. It makes sense. Like, for as much as Emma is making mountains out of molehills, it does that's a good point. But she's not too happy with it. And then there's a breakdancing contest for leaf tickets and all that. Um, yeah, Spinner and Jimmy try to compete, but Marco is introduced into this series as as a dancer. It's kind of weird that Marco actually gets introduced as a breakdancer, and he wins the competition for the Leafs game. Karma Chameleon is when Ashley tries her best to fix the situation about the house party and all that. She gets forgiveness from Paige and Hazel and all that, and apologizes to Jimmy and all that. But then, Paige, for some dumb reason, decides to like backstab Ashley. And then Ashley tries to explain things during the school pictures, and Paige basically tells Hazel and Terry that you have a choice. You be with me or with Ashley. And Paige tells Terry, in no unspitting terms, that if you're with me, you'll be popular, everything will be fine. If you're with Ashley, you'll be an outcast. Unfortunately, Terry and Hazel go on Paige's side, and Ashley is upset. Rightfully so. Toby gets smitten with the new girl, which he kind of smothers in a sense, not realizing she's Spinner's sister. But Spinner tells Toby that if you break her heart, I'll break you. Well, of course, Kendra is adopted because she's Chinese and Spinner is white. Weird Science is when Emma wins first place at the science fair, but she doesn't feel she deserves it because Mr. Simpson is one of the judges and all that. And then the class knows about the relationship and all that. And, Emma feels like there's a judging bias. And Liberty tries to convince Emma to forfeit the trophy. Well, Manny tells Emma, don't listen to Liberty. She's just jealous. And Liberty says, about rumors and all that. But Emma was going to forfeit in the first place. She didn't need Liberty to be a bitch about it. Fortunately, though, Mr. Simpson proves to her that it was no bias. And then Emma realizes it, and then they get back together in a way. And then this was when Spinner starts having erections. Drive is when Craig actually thinks he gets free reign to drive and take his friends on a joyride when Joey goes out of town for the weekend. They get tickets for a concert, a Kid Eldrick concert, if I remember correctly, which they win and all that. But unfortunately, though, um, Joey has to come back because of the whole thing with Silent Alarm. He grounds Craig. He rips up the concert tickets. Okay, fine. You rip up Craig's ticket. But the problem is you just ripped up the tickets for the other people. Like, that's not fair to, like, Jimmy and the others. Like, you punish Craig and all that. But I wonder if, yeah, it's like, well, now Craig's in trouble. But let's not forget, too, that Joey could have easily probably just, I don't know what he would have done. Shout was the seventh of eight episodes which Paige and Dean basically get together. Dean has his way with Paige and all that. And she was sexually assaulted and all that. Paige finally breaks down and tells Ashley the truth about the whole um, thing about what happened to her. And Ashley comforts Paige. Paige then goes to Sauve for help and all that. Mirror in the Bathroom is the ninth episode in which Toby is jealous of Sean's status at school and basically being just a nobody. So he decides to try out for the wrestling team. He gets put in the same weight class as Sean. He does terribly, but then he decides to lose weight so that he could get in another weight class and avoid Sean. He could have also gained weight to avoid Sean too in a different weight class. But the fact of the matter is that this was groundbreaking because this was talking about male eating disorders instead of just the female ones and all that. Unfortunately, JT and Ashley find out about it. Toby isn't too well. And the camera angles were good because it starts to shake because from Toby's point of view and all that. So that was brutal. And Toby ends up passing out during the wrestling match, and then he gets cut because making weight was terrible. However, Toby is told that the school freaked out about him, especially Sean. Now, do you feel unpopular, Tobes? Even Kendra was concerned about Toby. And then Terry wants to hide her job as a plus size model from her friends, but her friends convince her that it's nothing to be ashamed of. And then when a classmate who's an ice cream vendor does the whole shtick about fat shaming her, she waves her paycheck in front of the vendor and basically tells her that she's made more about her photo shoot than he'll ever make in a week. And basically, she gets her revenge. Take my breath away. The 10th episode is when Manny decides to ask Craig out. Emma, well, the each one remembers the evening differently. Manny says that it was lovely. Craig says it was bizarre and all that. Ellie and Marco have anonymous love notes to each other. Don't believe the hype is the episode December 1st, 2002, which I said was one of the most underrated episodes in Degrassi history. This was the episode in which Hazel becomes the star of this episode and gets the main plot line, which was unusual for a side character. So she tries to hide her Muslim identity by pretending to be Jamaican, but then another girl named Farisa actually ends up telling Hazel that she should be proud to be Muslim and all that. Hazel makes some bad remarks about Farisa being from Iraq and all that. They do an international day for the grade nines about their cultures. Pages in the Ukrainian low-cut dressing pierogies and all that. Spinner doesn't know what nationality he's from, so he makes some kind of concoction that Snake gags on. Snake and his Swedish stuff because Stefan Brogan. Um, I don't know what Jimmy does and all that, but Radish in that freaking kilt kills me every time. So the event actually gets destroyed because some guys actually destroy Farisa's Iraq display. Hazel's fingered as a suspect because of her talk about Farisa, but Hazel is exonerated and decides to help Farisa out for project and admit she was Muslim and all that. And you know, she does the media presentation to them about her Muslim heritage and says that she's at a point that she doesn't have to wear her hijab all the time, except for prayers. And they accept her. And then the subplot was big because JT's actually great with sewing and all that, and Liberty wants him to help her with her stuff. Unfortunately, though, she spills the beans about JT's thing and all that, and they both get in trouble. However, and JT gets laughed at, but the joke's on Sean and Toby for insulting him because then the girls want JT to make skirts for them. And JT gets to do his measurements and destroy them. Ha 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 ha. So, yeah. And I said this would be big nowadays in 2025 because it deals with um, national identity. It deals with men being in a woman's job, like gender identity and gender stuff. Ugh, I can't remember. White Wedding was the 12th and 13th episode. That's when Spike and Snake's wedding happens, and Emma is upset because there's a lot of things going wrong. Sean's invited to the event. There's a bad cake. She's trying to be a good wedding planner. But then Spike confides in her that she's pregnant and wants to abort the baby. Emma, of course, is upset, saying that this is stupid. You can get through this. And Spike says, I don't want another mistake. And Emma blows up sky high. Manny tries to convince her not to, but Mount Emma is going to explode. And she does. Anyways, so she goes to Spike, a snake, in the middle of his bachelor party and it inadvertently gets JT and Toby in trouble because they were trying to find the stripper and all that. So Snake is not too happy. Spike's not too happy with Emma, but Snake says at least someone's responsible. Emma thinks she's ruined the wedding, but thankfully everything works out. All right. A Careless Whisper was when Ellie wants to be more than friends with Marco, but She realizes why Marco doesn't want to be with Ellie because he's gay. Toby wants to spend every second with Kendra, which makes her feel suffocated. She tries to explain herself. Toby tries to talk his way out of it, but Kendra says, I know, I understand the relationship, Toby, but I have a voice. Of course, Toby keeps thinking that Kendra is going to break up with him at any second now and feels like he needs a girlfriend. But it could also be desperation because, you know, how Toby's parents are. They're divorced and all that. Maybe Toby's worried about his relationship with Kendra being close to what his parents were like. And, you know, Toby just wants acceptance. Makes sense. Hot for Teacher is when JT deals with Metaxalakis, who's a science teacher at the time and all that, and has a bond over her. Jimmy and Spinner have an all honesty pact, but unfortunately that doesn't work out. Message in a Bottle, number 16, is when Jimmy and Sean decide to bury the hatchet with each other. Emma and Sean are a couple again, and Sean makes a couple of boo boos trying to win Emma back. Relax is when Liberty does her Napoleon complex. Yeah, because she doesn't make the girls' floor hockey team and is told to be team manager by Hatzalakos because, you know, a good team needs a good team manager, and and Liberty might be good at that. But Liberty decides to take over the floor hockey team in a match against the boys basketball team for uniforms and all that from Jeremiah Motors. So anyway, Liberty becomes Napoleon and pushes everyone away. Um, Dressed in Black is when Ashley wants to be with Jimmy and thinks that we're gonna have a good relationship, but Jimmy wants Ashley to be the old one instead of the goth one. Fight for Your Right is the one episode when Emma really went off the deep end. So this was the episode in which Emma decides to protest wants non-genetically modified foods to be in the school, but Raj tells her that because of the school's budget, we have to abide by things, and gives Emma props for her presentation. But Emma thinks that he's being cold and condescending, so she passes out flyers. Raj takes them away. Emma does concede, but then when they do a cafeteria commercial blocking her, she decides to blow off the deep end and basically tells Manny that I'm not changing my tone for anybody. So then it inadvertently leads to a food fight. Raj basically blames her for the food fight, which is the stupidest thing you can do. But, you know, you know, she's upset. She does a protest. Raj wants her to take ownership over everything or else facing massive suspension. She actually does concede that the food fight was stupid and all that. But then basically she goes off on saying that she has a right to say something. My free will, my right to speech, my free speech rights were taken away by Radic, and I'm taking a suspension. And that practically it leads to like it kind of leads Radic inadvertently to go downhill more so because Radic in season 3 I feel like is trying to get control of the school because now Emma has told about Radic's technique and all that Radic needs to fix things. How soon is now the 20th episode is when Paige actually finds out that Dean and Bardell are coming for a basketball game, and that's when JT decides to help Paige out by taking on Dean in a fight. And Paige then says, "I'm going to press charges against you because nobody's going to protect you, and no one's, and I'm going to do this all by myself." And Tears Are Not Enough, the final 2 episodes of season 2, is the one in which Albert comes back in Craig's life and Craig doesn't know how to feel. Albert, unfortunately, uh, well, does not prove the thing about leopards, saying that leopards can't change their spots and all that. I don't know what I'm doing, but the fact of the matter is that Craig doesn't know what to do. Albert then gets mad at him for breaking a thing, and then he beats him up, and then Craig finds out that Albert dies in a car crash off screen. Albert probably may have crashed the car on purpose or basically lost control, was thinking about his rage, and then just lost control of his car. But anyway, Craig doesn't know how to feel. Craig's told that he doesn't have to finish the school year because he'll pass no matter what, because Ratchet is not going to let Craig be victimized because, he knows all about the situation via the whole thing with Wheels in Degrassi Junior High. So Craig is conflicted what to think about things. He actually ends up winning Luau King to Ashley's Luau Queen, kind of a sympathy thing, taking down Jimmy and Hazel and Spinner and Paige, like those couplings in the competition. But then he hallucinates Albert coming back to see him, so he ends up ripping posters. Everyone wants to go after him, trying to help Craig out, but Raj tells everyone to let Craig get it out of his system. And then Terry comes in to confront him and comfort him because of the fact that she lost her mother because she was away at a birthday party. So Craig just says, I can't understand it. My tormentor's gone, but why do I feel these ways? Because you've cared for him. He does technically apologize for everything, but no problems and all that. Little did we know this would be the last episode that Raditch would be in his mustache, Chuck Norris style mustache. Once the mustache is gone, poof, Raditch is a bitch. And season 4 will expose him for who he was. But personally, I feel that this was pretty good. And the first 2 seasons were actually when I was in high school myself. I was in grade 11 when Degrassi Next Gen started, and then grade 12 the next year. And then, of course, took a gap year for season 3. And then season 4 was when I started in college and all that. So, yeah, it got to me because I was a high schooler at that time when Degrassi Next Gen happened. So, kind of shows you my age, but that's what happened. So, anyway, those are the first 2 seasons of Degrassi, and there'll be more videos, retrospects coming up in the weeks ahead. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.